water returns to the rivers, and all the rivers are as one. And the current that flows to the ocean knows it's just waiting for the storm that's yet to come. All waters like blood in a vein, going and returning to the heart.
In 2023, Twitter user Mask of Bun, better known as Bigelows Wolfwood, made a post promoting the book This Is How You Lose the Time War.
Read this. Do not look up anything about it. Just read it. It's only like 200 pages. You could download it on Audible. It's only like 4 hours. Do it right now. I'm extremely serious.
This tweet went viral and made the book get into the Amazon's bestseller list. Everyone in the book world was talking about it, especially because the comedic aspect of this random Twitter post making a book become famous overnight. And it's such an amazing example of how a genuine human recommendation will always get you farther than any kind of marketing would. And I ask myself a lot of the times, if I had to promote one thing, if I was allowed to say one piece of media to tell the whole world you need to watch this and have it go viral overnight, well, it's the Silt Verses. Of course it's the Silt Verses. This video is about the Silt Verses. You clicked on this video knowing it was about the Silt Verses. You should listen to the Silt Verses. The Silt Verses is a folk horror set in a world where gods are not only real, but part of everyday life. Politics, your average 9 to 5. Even getting a cup of coffee in the morning. All of it involves worshipping gods. The story follows two worshippers of an illegal river god on a pilgrimage to find divine answers from their god, the Trump. And while being pursued by the police, they find other gods, worshippers, and things that have very big consequences for their world. The show isn't very famous. And I mean, fiction podcasts in general are a very niche thing. So if you like this pitch, go listen to it. It's really good. That is the only thing I can say objectively. It's just really good. And the reason I brought up Twitter icon Bigelows in the year of our Lord 2025 is because, well, you want to know where they got the recommendation?
We're talking about New Weird and Prose. If you haven't read This Is How You Lose the Time War, people, get on that. It's a great example.
That's right, the Silt Verses. So, if you don't want to believe me, believe Bigelows, because they love the show as well. Disclaimer, this video will be so incredibly rambly. This show is filled with so many themes and so much story. There is no way I get to talk about every character in detail that I want to or that it deserves. And I will just bounce back and forth on ideas. The first ever spoken words in the show are a very simple call and response between our two main characters.
Marco. Polo.
Carpenter and Faulkner at first glance are a very stereotypical body cop duo. Carpenter being this kind of tired and worried older woman who has been in the faith for a very long time and has kind of seen it all already. And then being contrasted by Faulkner, who is very naive and optimistic about it all and still kind of figuring things out, and who might be a little bit too enthusiastic about the trip.
He held his nerve. He almost threw up with excitement, honestly.
Carpenter spends the first episode talking down on Faulkner, talking about him like he's like some kicked puppy.
We've been on the road for 16 days, and I am beginning to wonder if I can stand Faulkner at all. No, I'm not losing my faith. I simply lack any in Faulkner.
And then you hear his inner monologue. And he's like, yeah, I've killed before. And I'll kill again. I'll kill Carpenter if I have to.
I will take Sister Carpenter's head and plunge it beneath your surface.
and I will hold it down until the bubbles of air come trickling up, until the bubbles of air no longer come trickling up, until she kicks and stops kicking. After that, my trawler man, perhaps she'll hear your music again.
And then you're like, whoa, buddy, calm down. The contrast is immediately set. For both characters, their relationship with their god is defined by the tragedy of their older brother's death. Carpenter grew up in the cold, in the care of her grandma, Nana Glass, but was taken in by the lawful authorities after they killed Nana Glass. And Carpenter, despite her upbringing, only found her faith after seeing her brother's death being announced on live TV, seeing this as a punishment on her on being too unfaithful. Her relationship with her god is one of fear, because if she doesn't worship him, she will lose the people she loves.
That was the first time in my life I knew what terror really was. The first time I truly believed in you, my river.
And that's what drove her back to her god. Faulkner instead straight up killed his older brother as a sacrifice to the trawler man, a mistake he kind of glorifies in his head.
And although Charlie rolled and rocked, I stayed pressed upon him from my perch and clung to the sides of the ladder with both hands, and I kept him down until he told me to let him up. It was a relief when the calm finally descended, and I heard the voice again. It was grateful, it said. I was a good boy to have done something so difficult, and to have done as I was told so well.
He talks about it like he was called to a greater purpose. Like this was some divine revelation. How the trawler man told him he did a good job. Something he's never been told before. He grew up with a very absent father. And because of that, he lacked a lot of that recognition of and affection that he so craves and now looks for in his god. There is also this whole thing of the gods being kind of like parental figures in that sense. Carpenter having feared her grandma Nana Glass the same way she fears the trawler man. Meanwhile, Faulkner is trying to find the validation that he never got from his dad. And they both believe the other is wrong in how they approach their religion, believing that only they understand their God truly. And that is the driving conflict between them in season 1, where they'll slowly start to understand each other and learn from each other and kind of come to be on the same level of understanding in how they are.
I think maybe that's why I hated you.
I hated you too, Sister Carpenter.
And for both of them, this comes from a place of the thing they lost. They lost their older brother and are both trying to find meaning in that. But they're also trying to find belonging. They are trying to find the family that they lost in each other. But in the end, there's one really big difference between them, which kind of foreshadows how they'll act on this during the course of the series. The way their brothers were sacrificed. It tells us that Faulkner will always give up the people he loves for his god, and Carpenter will always have people love their god more than they love her. One mouth devours, the other returns. Marco Polo.
The trawler man, when he slicks back his oilskin hat to show you his own true self, has 2 faces and 2 mouths. One mouth that devours, and one mouth that returns. A god must feed. A god must be fed.
There's many moments in the Silt Verses that stick with me, but there's one in particular very early on that I find as a very divining quote.
Isn't this great? We each get to choose the thing that eats us.
Says it so casually.
tosses the thought out into the world.
It has sort of become the tagline of the show, and it's a cool sounding phrase, which makes it all the more interesting that it was said by a side character while talking about job search. They're talking about jobs. The Silt Verses is a very clear deconstruction of late-stage capitalism. Like, yeah, it takes place in this fantasy world where you can just sacrifice people if you hand in the right paperwork.
The old churches were rolling back into town and sacrificing firstborns without the proper paperwork.
And, like, that's the thing, right? It's the crudeness of the metaphor that makes it work. It takes away the lie of fairness. We already live in a world where your human rights can be taken away with the correct or incorrect paperwork. In the Silt Verses, you kind of legally need to be contracted to a god. Usually that's a work contract. And to keep the gods at bay, they need human sacrifice. You want to keep the lights on across the country? Well, you better sacrifice enough people to the Saint Electric. And while I don't think it takes a genius to understand that the first people who get sacrificed are the people left behind by society, the jobless, the homeless, the people without a contract, the people in prisons, the people society can do without. And it's a very interesting way of doing world building because it's very basically just asking the question, what if sacrificing people to make the crops grow would actually work? What if those old mythology and old rituals would actually do something? And how would society grow with that? And with that comes the second question. How much are we willing to sacrifice other people if it means our own comfort? If it means our lights are still on, if it means the grinding lord's coffee is still fresh. The phrase, "a god must feed," is thrown around a lot as an inherent truth. Like there is no other option. Our society relies on gods, and in turn we have to give something to them for that exchange. Nothing in life is free. Another scene that hit me really hard specifically, it's a scene where Carpenter is still a young girl and being forced to carry out her first sacrifice. And when she doesn't want to, her Nana Glass tells her,
"You're an organ in the working body of this world, Mallory Glass. No amount of scornful looks and sour remarks is going to change that. You're no better than what's come before, and you're no better than what's coming after. So, you will participate."
It's a quote that gets to me because no matter how much you despise it, you can't really escape the system. You are forced to participate. It's really hard to work outside of it. You have to participate. There's this belief that there is no other way, which kind of reminds me of the rhetoric around capitalist realism. Capitalist realism is a book by Mark Fisher that proposes the idea that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is the end of capitalism. And in the same vein, the people in the Silt Verses are unwilling to give up their gods. It is hard to imagine a system without them.
And the more we feed it, the more harm it does. But we don't know how to stop. No, you're right, though. We are running out of stories. But we don't know how to give them up. We're all going to die screaming that we're not really dying and that we're not really screaming.
Which then stands out to me is the usage of solar power in chapter 39. Which is an episode aesthetically didn't really work for me originally because its environment is so different. And like, the show doesn't have a strict time period, but it does have a sort of old-timey feeling to it. The main way of getting information and news is the radio instead of TV. TVs feel like a luxury, and also the internet doesn't exist. And I'm unsure if mobile phones are a thing either, because most of the times the characters call it with a landline. And chapter 39 has this really weird futuristic energy to it.
And you've made it! Welcome! Let me give you the spiel. All of the GGU Department of Experimental Theology's acts of innovation take place in sealable units just like this one, equipped with steel shutters and blast-proof glass, as well as a wide array of snacks and drinks, to allow our students to create even under the most testing of conditions. Just, as reading from the pamphlet.
This country's technology hasn't been allowed to develop in the same way that ours has. Solar power feels out of place here, which that's kind of the point. We're looking at the lives of people who are at the top, people who are working with or for the government, while the rest of the country are struggling with power cuts. We see the upper class sitting comfortably because they have solar power and sitting very literally in a glass box.
We are drinking premium coffee and sitting in a glass-paneled room discussing ad campaigns while the Lingers bomb us. While outside, our people protest and riot against the scale of sacrifice.
With a bunch of energy drinks.
A fucking energy drink!
And all of the comfort that they could want.
I also forgot to mention the whole point about solar power being significant is because they keep talking about how they need to give sacrifices to keep the power on and to keep the world running, but they very clearly have other options. They have solar power. They know how to create energy in other ways, and still they choose to go for the, I guess, cheaper option of killing people.
Wouldn't it just be truly fucking awful if it was only people out here and nothing else?
We are originally introduced to Faulkner the same way other characters do, by how he's underestimated, just a kid. So then it's very surprising when he knocks out a hostile owner and kills him.
What are you?
I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to make you a saint.
By like episode 5. And at that point, you don't know how far Faulkner will go with this, because we are still unfamiliar with him, but also unfamiliar with the world around him. And by season 2, both you and Faulkner have the realization that he is not unique in this, because we are introduced to Thurox.
It almost looks like a parody of one of our own sacrifices.
The introduction of both Faulkner in season 2 and Thurox is a reflection of the first episode in season 1, with Faulkner going on a pilgrimage with a younger disciple as they look at and describe a sacrifice. Thurox here is supposed to represent a younger Faulkner who is excited to be here and excited to put her life on the line in the name of the Trawler Man in the same way he was. And we learn that Faulkner was never an oddity. He was a direct product of the system. If we're all organs in the working body of the system, then what does that teach us? What is the natural result of knowing that nothing comes without sacrifice, that a god must feed? Then sacrifice must mean something. Every interaction must have a cost. And an environment like that breeds individualism. There's this running theme of trying to build something lasting, a legacy, climbing the corporate ladder to get to the top. We see this individualism very specifically in Faulkner, and his individualism breeds mistrust. Everything comes at a cost, which we see with Carpenter, who refuses to accept help because she knows that it'll cost her something. There is this wrong belief that the world is balanced and that sacrifice means something. Everything comes with a cost and return. There is one mouth of the trawler man that devours and the other that returns. Thus, when a character like Faulkner goes through immense hardship, he has to believe that it means something. He is the reason his brother died, and that is to him incomprehensible. He tries to tell himself a story, that it means something, that it's a worthy sacrifice, that he is special for the sacrifice. Carpenter talks about this, how she felt like her pain made her special.
I used to be very much like you, Faulkner. I was young and I was fervent, and I thought I'd been chosen by the trawler man. Back then, when you were young and you were hurting, you had a voice in your head that whispered words through the pain, and with a close and intimate love that truly understood you. And it drove you onwards through the loneliness, and all in all, it seemed like such a convincing case that it made you special.
And this trust in balance makes people give more and more, believing that one day the scales will balance in their favor, and it will have people reach the end of their days never having received anything.
The whole damn world's an engine, and all of us just keep feeding ourselves in. Because it feels like stopping now could only end in disaster.
And like, the story loves putting Faulkner with characters that represent a younger version of himself. First example is Thorax, but a better example is Rain. And we all know, I love Rain. Faulkner's right hand, sibling Rain, in season 3 echoes this similar sentiment.
I used to dream that I myself had been chosen by the trawler man for some great and terrible purpose.
I remember Sister Thorax telling me something similar.
They too once wanted to feel special. And Faulkner is not unique in that. Like I said before, Faulkner is the exact result of this system. And so many of the characters are stuck in this sunk cost fallacy kind of mindset. Too scared to rip themselves away from everything they've built because what will be left?
It's like you're tangled up in barbed wire. Draw closer, it'll be agony. Pull away, and you don't know what pieces of yourself you leave behind. But you have to pull away, or this person, this gravitational orbit is gonna destroy you.
And another example in how this mistrust creates problems is how Carpenter is kind of a non-practicing misanthrope, because she doesn't really believe in the good of people.
You turn out to be a decent sort, maybe everyone's good at heart. What a dreadful outcome that would be. There have to be some monsters, don't there? Because otherwise, how could all of this be happening? Why wouldn't someone have put a stop to it yet? How can we possibly make sense of the evidence of our eyes if there was kindness and courage buried deep in all of us and all we had to do was listen to it?
And that is ultimately kind of the horror of the Silt Verses. It is not the gods or the monsters, but the fear of people themselves and having to learn how to exist with them.
Wouldn't it just be truly fucking awful if it was only people out here and nothing else?
Because we've been so taught to mistrust other people, to believe that if they give us something, they expect something in return, that we are incapable of doing something kind without it costing something. It's the human moments that scare me the most, or at least reach me emotionally the most, because it's scary how much we can hurt each other. It's scary to see the capacity to which we inflict hurt on each other, while also knowing those same people have the same capacity of being good. Because it's not human to want to hurt people. It is not a natural instinct. It's the mistrust that is instilled in you by the system. So how do you fix all of that? if we are so stuck in this mindset about sacrifice and return and balance, how do you come out of that system with something better? And what is the opposite of sacrifice?
There's nothing we can make that can't be turned against us.
We have a character like Paige, who is introduced in the first season as a character who has kind of played out the system. She's done it all. She has a nice job, apartment, she can pay her rent. Despite it all, she is unhappy with the routine she's found herself in. The episode's monologue kind of repeating itself, the daily motions that she goes through every day.
And I remember how lucky I am. I remember I never expected to get this far.
And then we get to the conclusion of the episode, where she finds out that her friend and mentor is going to be sacrificed to her company. And trying to save them, she sends her boss an email. Hopes that her goodwill will save her friend.
You're to be commended for your empathy and conscience. Alan, Jill, I think this is a good reminder that our people managers need to be properly supported during this challenging period. Please speak to Paige about assigning her one of the vacant company cars.
But instead, all she gets is an expensive company car for being a team player. And not only does her friend get viewed as capital to be wasted, but her genuine concern is kind of misinterpreted as her trying to prove herself and something to be rewarded, without actually helping the thing she is being concerned about. And that is her breaking point. At the end of season 1, she makes the decision to make something better. She has the confidence and the will to break free.
And I never found a god I could love more than fear. When I get home after all of this, I want to try to make something better.
And Carpenter asks her the realistic question.
You ever think if it was possible to create something better, someone would have done it already?
And now I also need to talk about Hayward, who's another character that's like the main four. The main characters are Carpenter, Faulkner, Hayward, and Paige. I've just not talked about Hayward yet. Again, I'm bouncing a little bit back and forth, but he's introduced in season 1. He is actually the antagonist in season 1, the cop that is chasing Carpenter and Faulkner. And in his first conversation with Carpenter, he mentions a wife and divorce.
Are you married then?
Increasingly less so of late.
Neglecting to mention the fact that he is not married and is just weirdly trauma dumping about his job to this random woman. Like, imagine being in a random cafe and you're just trying to order your cappuccino and some random guy next to you goes, "Yeah, I'm getting a divorce." And then like a year later you found out he was never married to begin with. Funnily enough, this does mirror Carpenter's feelings about her faith. Because Hayward is questioning his job as a cop and if that's what he wants in life. And if he can pull himself away from that in the same way that Carpenter is questioning her own faith to the trawler. And then one thing leads to another, getting kidnapped.
I made you eggs.
I think you may have misunderstood something fundamental about hostage taking.
Hey, it's the way it was taught to me.
And he ends up with Paige in her whole plot to create a new god. Two people in the system, two people who were complicit in the system, pulling away to make something better, to make a new god. What could go wrong? In the Silt Verses, there's a lot of talk about narratives, how stories can be twisted into something new, something they can use against a revolution, a god, an idea can just as easily be turned around to serve the narrative of the system.
the impassable Lith, now one of our more popular militarized deities utilized in defense. But it was originally worshipped by strikers in transport unions almost a century ago.
There is nothing they can't turn against us. The narratives we tell are ultimately a way to strengthen the system. We talk about anti-capitalist media and then give ourselves a pat on the back for seeing the lies as they are, instead of actually doing something about it. Choosing to consume anti-capitalist media is still a choice to consume, ultimately feeding into it. And Silt Verses kind of makes fun of this by having a radio serial that plays in the backgrounds of some episodes, which is kind of a mirror of a less radical version of the story of Paige and Hayward, and it's very comical the way it's done.
Penny, please! I love you, but this has to stop! This is madness!
You said it yourself, Carly. Too many people have died. And for what? So Richter can turn a profit?
We started this to stop Richter, I know, but we have the proof now. We can show the world he was conducting unsanctioned sacrifices to line his own pockets.
And a great real-world example of this is the Squid Game. The example of, we have created determinate nexus from the series Don't Create Determinate Nexus. And it's an anti-capitalist story that ultimately fails to say anything because it stretched so much further than it should have been for monetary gain. And also just like all the marketing tie-ins that show created. What used to be and was supposed to be a criticism is now just used as a product. But back to the Silt Verses. Paige and Hayward decide to go live in a deserted town and create a commune. And they go and help the people that try and escape. But still they are weaving a narrative. Whereas how unnatural it comes to Paige. They create this fake mythos around a widow who was trying to protect her husband and this and that. And that's how their god, the wound tree, was created. Even though the wound tree is more so based on Paige's grief for her mom, or at least the crocus flowers that are used to represent the tree are representative of Paige's grief for her dead mom. And there is a really good scene in season 2 where Paige tries to convince a prisoner to become their first saint. And this prisoner is on death row and doesn't have many other choices anyway. But when Paige gets the opportunity to sell her god, she fails to do so because she's unwilling to lie.
Can you promise me that it'll hurt me less than the wire-bitten child would?
No. I can't promise you that.
But the pain isn't what lasts.
She is unable to create this sweet lie that things might be better if she died being a saint, because that's not who Paige is. In season 3, she is forced to become the symbol, the widow of wounds, and she does come to terms with that and come to peace with that, hoping that at least she'll mean something to the people she cares about.
Day by day, I'm being eaten by the story we gave birth to. I'm becoming what they see in me. And honestly, Hayward, I'm starting not to mind. Not so long as I can stay myself until it ends. Not so long as I leave them with something they can carry onwards.
For her, her community is the most important. To create change, you can't just speak about it. You have to act on it. You have to build community. And that's not to say that words don't have power. They absolutely do. But there are moments that the words just won't work anymore.
Picked words.
The words won't save you, Rain.
And that is the point of the story. the point that it's kind of hard to talk about because all I can really do is point at it and be like, yeah, it's really good.
This is the truth, as I see it. There is no rational plan for our society as we've built it.
Trust me, I'm shaking you. It's really good.
And we'll spend great fortunes on finding ways to make our atrocities sound pretty and sustainable and safe. And when you try to tell us this, we will reply that you've been duped by undergraduate simplicity. You're being unreasonable.
Like, here I have a clip of a character monologuing about the themes for multiple minutes. I hope you like that.
The world is complicated, and people are too. But greed and hunger are simple truths. And the more justifications we find, the harder it becomes to face them.
It's very obvious, and all I can do is point at it and be like, yeah, it's good.
Do not forget the suffering that keeps the engines of this world turning. Forget the name of your God and cherish the name of your neighbor that was swallowed up by it.
And a lot of the characters have this turnaround moment where, whether or not they are good people, in their last moments they decide to be kind.
But no matter how it starts, no matter how it all turns out for us, it could still end with love. Can't it? It can end with love. And it can end with kindness.
Being a good or bad person doesn't exist. We can argue day and night about what makes you a good person or what you believe and what you don't believe. But ultimately, it's about the actions you take, the people you help. So what is the opposite of sacrifice? I'm not telling you. You can just watch the show yourself. The message of the Silt Verses is quite simple. We should choose to be kind, without reservations or without expecting anything back. We should care about people around us. Take care of your neighbors. Speak to the people you care about. It might not save the world, but it makes things better. And I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of that. There are so many themes to this story. And I don't even feel like I've done what I've talked about justice. This is a video I've very literally worked on for almost a year because I kept telling myself I need to find the right words, be articulate enough, do justice to what this story makes me feel. And it's really hard. The Silt Verses has so many amazing characters. John Ware has such a natural ability of making characters feel human and real, to the point that I feel bad for not mentioning characters like Val or Shu. And I haven't even talked about Rain all that much. I love Rain. And that being said, what makes the Silt Verses so special to me is its extremity. I've known so many anti-capitalist stories, but none of them go the full mile in the way that this show feels like it does. Feels like it really understands the nuance of the way the world works without going, well, it's complex, so I don't know if capitalism is bad. It's capitalism is bad, and there is complexity. I've seen plenty of anti-capitalist stories that don't go the full mile, that have an anti-capitalist stance, but then also replace the bad guy by punching him really hard and then putting a different guy in charge and be like, we fixed it, without really looking at the nuance. And the Silt Verses take so much more of a nuanced approach to a lot of these things. It understands the nuance of the world without backing down on the fact that things suck. Things suck, and it's hard to fix, but there is so many small things we could be doing and it starts at being kind to each other. That also being said, its approach to queer characters is really good. A lot of the characters are just very passively queer. 50% of the main cast is canonically trans and played by a trans actor. I don't think I could say that about most shows. And I'll say I restrained myself a little bit with ranting about the really big, spoilery character deaths and shit. If you want to listen to it, just do it. The ride is good on its own. It has so much good horror to it. I haven't even really mentioned the horror aspect of the show. It's just a weird little freakish show that I love. And I also really love the community. This community is just very fun, very vibrant, so many good artists. And I love our little in-joke and stuff. Gotta mention Joe Biden's sex coma.
Joe Biden's sex coma.
There, I mentioned it. Thank you for watching this very rambly video about why the Silt Verses is very cool and very good, and the themes are very good, and I'm shaking you violently. Go listen to it. And it's objectively a really good show.
Joe Biden's sex coma. Get it down now at Kmart for $9.99. All new, all Joe, all Biden, all sex coma.
Thanks for watching.